Little do these Amsterdam gallery visitors know, but they are about to get a ghost story, one dreary November night.
Good evening. Please, come inside. Come right in. Please come right in. And don't make too much noise and don't be too pushy. Back a bit. Come in. Do you feel you can come in, all you people lingering at the back? I am the librarian here. You may call me Miss Dingwall, but quietly. Please let me tell you that here you can only whisper. This is the personal library of a Mr. Alistair Van Crowley. Mr. Van Crowley was an occultist. He was a man of the black magic, but he was always very kind to me. Some say that he raised up Satan and the great beast, but he was always very kind to me. Sadly, he disappeared a few years ago, but he left behind one of the most evil books ever written, the Necronomicon. Tjus lamara mali chura, njochen, jemerach lera. I'm so sorry about that. That often happens. I should not read aloud in the library. Oh, perhaps we could be a little bit safer with this one. It's a personal favourite. It's written by a young English girl, an 18-year-old named Mary Shelley, although she was a great lover of Scotland as well. She spent many a happy day in Edinburgh, but I digress. This book, critics said, for a man was excellent, but for a woman, wonderful. And it is indeed wonderful. It was on a dreary day in November. I entered my laboratory and saw the dull yellow eye of the creature. But perhaps you would prefer to hear more from the authoress herself. Mary Shelley was a very clever woman, and she and her husband, Percy Shelley, and Lord Byron liked to linger here, undercover. Some people call them ghosts, but I know them as my translucent friends. There is a phrase that will wake them from the dead. It was on a dreary night in November. moving again, just like in 1816. Oh, it was abominable weather that year too.
O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's wind, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter flame.
Pshaw, Shelley. The only thing this west wind is bringing is storm clouds, perpetual rain and sleet.
I'm forced to say Lord Byron is rather unpoetical but right.
Thank you, Mary. The weather here is worse than even in London.
And we all know how god-awful that is.
For weeks we have been cooped up in here, unable to go for walks, unable to visit the city. Our only entertainment is playing loose cat whist or telling ghost stories.
I immensely enjoyed the vampire tale last night.
Percy, it was chilling, but hardly frightening.
I admire a woman with strong opinions and a nice bosom.
Thank you, Lord Byron. I myself have composed a little tale that perhaps can be read with less heated altercation. I call it Frankenstein, or the New Prometheus. It is told in the voice of a young Swiss anatomy student, Victor Frankenstein. He was raised in Geneva, and from his early youth was enchanted by works of the ancient alchemist. He studied at the University of Ingolstadt and scoured the local charnel houses for body parts and infused the electrical life force into formerly dead bodies. As my husband Percy would say, restored the embalmer's ruining. Victor brought life again to the dead.
Dear Lord, I thought that Jesus chap was the only one who could pull that trick off.
The result was more than remarkable and more than tragic.
Hardly the stuff we would expect from such an English lady.
Let my Mary read. Her fantastic tale is original.
Indeed, my parents were the most original thinkers in London, now in the afterlife. I am sure they are at this very moment giving the invisible life force that created this universe much to think about. It was a dreary night in November. I entered my laboratory and saw the dull yellow eye of the creature open. It breathed hard, and a convulsive movement agitated its limbs. For 2 years I worked hard for the sole purpose of infusing life into an inanimate object. But when I had finished, the beauty of the dream vanished, and breathless horror and disgust filled my heart. I gasped at his shriveled complexion and black lips. For this, I had deprived myself of rest and health.
Smashing, Mary. Smashing.
How can I describe my emotion at this catastrophe? Or how to delineate the wretch whom with such infinite pain and care I had endeavored to form? His yellow skin, his watery eyes, the same colour as the dun white socket in which they were set, his shriveled complexion and straight black lips. A mummy again endued with animation could not be so hideous.
Jolly good. I saw a mummy at the British Museum. It reminded me of my mother-in-law.
No mortal could support the horror of that countenance.
No mortal could look upon the face of Lady Millbank without horror.
A human form like a pollution-nourished fern.
Describes the old girl to a T. But carry on, dear Mary.
The creature was ugly then. But when the muscle and joints were rendered capable of motion, it became such a thing. such as Dante himself could not have conceived. Unable to bear the aspect of the being I had created, I rushed out of my laboratory and ran down the steps.
Clever boy, the vicar of Frankenstein.
Desolation is a delicate thing.
In a few endless minutes, I heard the creature's footsteps above me.
Did I hear something?
Why did you create me? Did I ask you, Arthur, from the ache, to make me man?
Stop! You put Mary Shelley down this instant! How many times do I have to tell you that this is a library, not some movie theatre? I will have no growling in any library that I am in charge of. When you are quite finished, you will go upstairs and you will write 100 times, "I will not violate my creator." Now go back into your book, back in between the bindings. Go on. Naughty creature. Bad beast. Go on, up you go. Write your lines. Oh, I am terribly sorry about that. Some monsters will just not stay on the page. I mean, I have told him again and again, you know, you cannot kill the dead. But some monsters will never learn. Perhaps if Frankenstein had actually put a less worm-eaten brain into his head, who knows what would have happened. But look at them. They're quiet again. Oh. Now, that's quite enough hurly-burly for one night, one dreary November night in one library. I would ask you all to go downstairs again and not tell anyone of the strange occurrences that you have seen here occurring tonight. Thank you. And I will ask you that monster within yourself, keep hold of it and tame it and make sure that it is as well behaved as my one. I have a rendezvous upstairs. Thank you. Now shoot! Back downstairs.